Replicas is a new January film starring Keanu Reeves as the character Will Foster, who is working with this organization to download people's subconsciousness into a robot. And while he's doing this research, trying to figure it all out, he gets into a tragic car accident and all of his family members are killed. He's the only surviving one, and he just decides, hey, since I'm working on downloading people's brains into robots, how about I clone my family? Because, you know, cloning, like recreating them, is so much similar to what his job is of downloading people's brains into robots. These two things, clones and robots, they come together so well in this film. Honestly, guys, I don't even remember seeing a trailer for this movie. I probably did at some point, but I don't remember it at all. All I remember before seeing the film is that the poster has Keanu Reeves on one side and then a robotic-looking Keanu Reeves on the other. So I didn't really know much going in, and I still walked out pretty mad at this movie. This movie is definitely the worst film I've seen so far this year, but that being said, I've only seen 4. The other 2 I'll get reviews out for you soon, but this is definitely the worst one I've seen out of the 4. What's so weird about this movie is that, yes, it feels like a January film, but it also feels like a Netflix sci-fi film. Like, does anyone remember The Titan with Sam Worthington? This movie had the same kind of dull, boring tone as The Titan, and for some reason it came out in theaters instead of coming straight to Netflix. I have no idea how Replicas managed to do that just to escape from the clutches of Netflix and make it to the theater. I don't know if maybe that was an option to send it to Netflix at some point, but here we are. It's in theaters everywhere, and it sucks so bad. Like I said, this movie is very dull. One of the main reasons why it is because there's no sense of urgency whatsoever. Not only do you really not care about any of these cliched characters, not only are the performances less than stellar, but the movie, as far as the filmmaking, editing goes, it doesn't have any sense of excitement or tension to it. Like, it doesn't feel like you're on a certain deadline. You gotta get stuff done before this happens, and that is in there. You gotta get this done before this date, but you don't really feel like this deadline is really crunching down on any character. It just feels like everyone's just kind of indifferent to everything and just kind of floating through the plot instead of actually getting invested in it. I will say, though, there is an aspect of this story that I actually thought was kind of interesting, is that when the crash happens, Keanu Reeves realizes he doesn't have enough of these pods to recreate his family members, so he has to decide which one he's going to leave behind while he recreates the other 3, and that was actually a neat idea. It seemed like they were actually taking their premise in an interesting psychological direction. But then I just thought, oh wait, why can't you just grow the 3, keep them in like a coma until you wake up the daughter or something like that, you know? And they didn't really bother explaining that. All they said was, oh, we only have 3 pods. But they didn't really explain, like, we can only use them once, or we have to get rid of them fast. It's just, we only have the 3, so we can't recreate all members of my family, because I don't know, I can only make 3. There's actually a funny scene in this film involving Keanu Reeves and turning on his family members' electronics again and kind of having to respond to certain people that have been messaging them, and I was like, okay, that's actually the legit funny part of this film, like intentionally funny, as opposed to literally the other unintentionally hilarious stuff that happens. Like, the movie opens with the shot of a helicopter and it's so CG, it's so obviously fake that I couldn't help but bust out laughing. There's a line where Keanu Reeves is about to, like, get the subconscious downloaded so they can get this robot working. He says something that's supposed to be like this, yeah, awesome line, but it's so funny. The line is, he's waiting to give the go-ahead, and once he's decided to give the go-ahead, he says, energize the bunny. Energize the bunny! Energize the bunny, dude! Like, I was watching this movie on Rabbit, admittedly, so I was like, wait, guys, rewind a bit. I want to make sure that's exactly what he said. If he didn't say energize the body or energize the bunny, and it was energize the bunny. It was the funniest thing. But it was definitely meant to be like this, yeah, awesome line, like, go that guy. But instead, it's so funny how corny that is. And speaking of Keanu Reeves, I hate to do this to him because I think everyone knows he's not the most skilled actor actor in the world, but if you use him well, he can deliver a really great performance. Unfortunately, they did not use him well in this film. He is so bad here that when his family gets killed in this car accident, like I said earlier, you barely feel it. You barely feel like it's affected him at all. Like, there's the scene where he's getting all the bodies out from the water, and they just kind of hard cut to Thomas Middleditch just driving up, and Keanu Reeves like, I already have the idea to bring them all back to life. And it's like, it doesn't feel like a seamless transition from the last scene. It doesn't feel like you're emotionally affected in any way, shape, or form. God, I want to root for you because I like you, Keanu, in other movies and also just in real life. But the character it's so dry. And speaking of Thomas Middleditch, you can say he delivers the best performance in this movie, but really all you really get from him is just the typical side character stuff that they throw in one small twist near the end, but even then doesn't really matter that much. For the rest of the movie, he's just kind of like, alright, what do you need, Keanu? Well, remember, you gotta get it in by this time, okay? Alright, I'm here to remind you again, Keanu, why you need to do the things you're doing, because I'm the supporting character that's supporting you. It's just that kind of friend character that he has from his work. It's such a wasted role for him, especially when they try to give him more to do near the end. It's like, you really did waste the guy at the end of the day. Speaking of wasted, John Ortiz, for a while he's just generic business manager of where Keanu Reeves works, but then just out of nowhere he becomes just the corny villain with the only motivation being money and the improvement of industry, basically. It's like, okay, you're really wasting this dude's talent, and I wish you just made this movie more compelling, because the idea, sci-fi wise, it could have been executed to a point where it's actually kind of compelling, but instead they went the most generic route with it, so you're not really that invested with any of the people, you're not invested with the story, you're not invested in any of the action scenes either, because they're not poorly filmed or anything, but they're just kind of lame. Like, from the marketing team promoting this as from the producer of Transformers, you'd think that maybe the action would be more exciting or something along the lines of Transformers, but no, it's just kind of lame. And the CGI, especially, is pretty lame. For a while, like most of the movie, it's just like the Tony Stark Jarvis tech where it's like, oh, I can move all these holograms around. Like, it's just kind of that CG, and it's like, alright, like, that's fine, but whenever they show that freaking robot, man, that's when it became so noticeably bad. And I was like, oh god, you're like a TV movie that managed to make it into the theater. Like, at least that's what I'm seeing with the CG robot here, that the budget was kept real small. But if I'm being honest here, the biggest thing that really upset me about this movie, besides action sequences, besides the CGI, is that the family dynamic didn't really work as well as you maybe thought it would. Like, Keanu Reeves, as I mentioned earlier, isn't doing that good of a performance here, and the same goes for Alice Eve in this movie, who I thought was really poor, and I was honestly kind of shocked, because I just saw her in Iron Fist Season 2, where she was like one of the best actresses in that. And I also like her in Star Trek Into Darkness. Maybe it's because I need to see her in more stuff. Maybe she's just not that good an actress. But I've liked her in the things that I have seen her in. But this was just like, oh man. It's like you're about as dry as Keanu Reeves is right now. And that's not what you should be aiming for. And even the family, they barely give you any time to really care at first. And when they finally do get in the car, the lead up to the car accident is so poorly made. Like, they're driving in the rain, and Alice Eve is like, maybe you should pull over. Keanu's like, oh no, we're gonna get there. And the truck is coming in, like, oh god, and they swerve out of the way, like, oh, well, that was close. Like, barely affected. Like, truck is coming straight for them, like, oh god, and then, oh, that was close. But then all of a sudden, as soon as they say that, like, oh, that was a close one, a tree branch just falls and lands right on Alice Eve. And Keanu Reeves, he doesn't, like, brake or anything. He's like, oh god! It's almost like he speeds up and just keeps driving straight. And that's when they go off a cliff and into the water below. It's like, oh my god! I'm sorry, but I didn't care about this family at all, to the point where I had to laugh when the crash happened. It's like, the fact that you went so almost cartoony about it. You almost get hit by a truck, which is like the biggest threat, right? Because the car they're driving is so small. But once they avoid it, like, oh, well, that was fine. Just a tree branch takes him out. It's almost like they intentionally made it to be like a comedy scene or something like that. Like Dumb Ways to Die or something. I don't know. Oh man, this movie's so bad. I wouldn't say this movie ends with like a sequel bait ending, but it definitely ends in a place where the director, producer, writer are telling you, hey, if we want to continue this, we can probably make something out of this. It's not as annoying as something like Escape Room sequel bait ending, but it's like, I don't really care much about where else you take the story, if you actually are planning that. This is so bad, especially what they decide to end the movie on. Yeah, no more of these. I'm gonna give Replicas a D. There's one scene that intentionally made me laugh, and there's one idea that I thought would have been really interesting if the premise was executed well, but that's the problem, is that no one involved with this film was really executing it the way that it should have been. It should have been just this so compelling, thoughty kind of sci-fi film, but instead it's just so melodramatic and dry and dull and just so boring to watch. It's only like an hour, 30, 40 minutes, and it just felt like it dragged on for a while, to be honest. I like the actors in this movie, but unfortunately they're delivering performances that we know they're better than. So I can't recommend this movie even if you want like a dumb January fun movie. It's not even a dumb January fun movie. It's just a dry, boring January film that's just bad. But if you've seen Replicas, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.